the CEO of Vanderbilt Industries, had never felt more out of place than she did standing in aisle 7 of the local grocery store, staring at rows of soup cans she didn't recognize, wearing a pair of yoga pants she'd borrowed from her assistant and hadn't worn anything this casual in public in years. Natalie Vanderbilt pushed her cart forward, her phone buzzing incessantly in her pocket. She ignored it. For the first time in 8 years, she was ignoring work calls on a Tuesday afternoon, and the freedom felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Her therapist had been clear. Disconnect, do something normal, remember what it feels like to be human instead of a corporate machine. So here she was, grocery shopping like a regular person, except she had no idea what regular people actually bought. She reached for a can of tomato soup, then pulled back. Did people still eat canned soup? She lived on takeout and catered meals at the office. Her refrigerator at home contained bottled water, champagne, and possibly some moldy cheese from 3 months ago. "Excuse me," a deep voice said behind her, gentle and patient. Natalie turned and nearly dropped the can she'd been holding. The man standing there was tall, probably 6'2", with dark brown hair that looked like he'd run his hands through it a few too many times today. He wore a faded blue t-shirt that stretched across broad shoulders and jeans that had seen better days. But what caught her attention were his eyes. Warm brown, kind, and currently looking at her with mild concern. "You've been standing here for 10 minutes, he said, a slight smile tugging at his lips. "I don't mean to intrude, but you look like you might be having a crisis, soup-related or otherwise," Natalie blinked. "What? No, I'm fine, I'm just—" She gestured helplessly at the shelves. "Overwhelmed by the soup options?" he suggested. "I get it. Sometimes I stand here trying to remember if my daughter likes chicken, noodle, or tomato better. Then I realize I should just buy both and let her decide." "Your daughter," Natalie repeated, something warm spreading through her chest at how his whole face softened when he mentioned her. "Yeah, Sophie. She's 7. He reached past Natalie, grabbing 2 cans of soup without hesitation. She's sitting in the cart up front, probably reading the candy bar labels and trying to convince herself that chocolate counts as a food group. Natalie laughed, surprising herself. When was the last time she genuinely laughed? She sounds smart. Too smart sometimes. He extended his hand. "I'm Cole Anderson, by the way. Official soup aisle traffic controller, apparently." "Natalie," she said, shaking his hand. His palm was warm and calloused, the hand of someone who worked with them. It was a stark contrast to the soft, manicured hands she usually shook in boardrooms. Natalie Vanderbilt. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition maybe, but he didn't comment on her name. "Nice to meet you, Natalie. Can I help you find something? You still look a bit lost." "I'm trying to figure out what normal people eat for dinner," she admitted, then winced. That sounded incredibly pretentious. Cole laughed, a rich sound that made her stomach flutter. "A little, yeah, but points for honesty. What do you usually eat?" "Whatever my assistant orders for me at the office." "And you're trying to change that?" "Something like that." Natalie found herself smiling at him. "My therapist says I need to remember how to be a person instead of just a job title. Smart therapist." Cole leaned against his cart, seemingly in no hurry. "Okay, here's what I'd recommend. Start simple. Get some pasta, jarred sauce, maybe some frozen vegetables. You can't really mess it up, and it's actual food." "Pasta," Natalie repeated, like it was a foreign concept. "Come on," Cole said, gesturing for her to follow. "I'll show you." She shouldn't follow a stranger through the grocery store. She was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. She had meetings, conference calls, a merger to finalize. But something about Cole's easy manner and gentle voice made her want to keep talking to him, to exist in this bubble where she was just Natalie, not Natalie Vanderbilt, corporate powerhouse. They walked to the pasta aisle, and Cole pointed out different options, explaining each one like he was teaching her a valuable life skill, which she supposed he was. "Daddy," a small voice called out. A little girl with dark curly hair and her father's warm eyes came barreling down the aisle, stopping short when she saw Natalie. Oh, hi. Sophie, remember your manners, Cole said gently. Hi, Sophie said again, this time with more confidence. I'm Sophie. Are you my dad's friend? I'm Natalie. Your dad was just helping me figure out what to buy for dinner. Sophie's eyes widened. You don't know what to eat for dinner. That's okay. Sometimes I don't either. That's why Dad lets me pick sometimes, but he says I can't have pizza every night even though that would be the best thing ever. Natalie crouched down to Sophie's level, her designer yoga pants stretching. Pizza every night does sound pretty amazing. Right. Sophie grinned, revealing a missing tooth. Dad says we need variety, but I think pizza is very various. You can have pepperoni or cheese or even vegetables if you want to be healthy. She makes a compelling argument, Natalie said, looking up at Cole. His expression had softened even more, watching her interact with his daughter. She's got a lawyer's brain. Argues her case for everything. I'm going to be a scientist, Sophie announced, or maybe a vet, or a scientist-vet who helps animal science. All excellent choices, Natalie said seriously. The world needs more scientist vets. Sophie studied her for a moment, then nodded approvingly. I like you. You don't talk to me like I'm a baby. That's because you're clearly not a baby, Natalie replied. You're 7, which is practically grown up. That's what I keep telling Dad. Sophie turned to her father triumphantly. Cole shook his head, but he was smiling. Don't encourage her. She already thinks she should have a later bedtime and her own phone. The phone thing is for safety, Sophie explained to Natalie. What if there's an emergency and I need to call Dad? What emergency would you have at home with Dad right there? Cole asked. A science emergency. Those are very serious. Natalie laughed again, and Cole's eyes met hers over Sophie's head. Something passed between them, warm and electric. Her phone buzzed again, breaking the moment. I should let you both get back to your shopping, Natalie said, standing up. Her knees creaked slightly, and she made a mental note to start using the gym membership she paid for monthly but never touched. Okay, Sophie said, then tugged on her father's shirt. Dad, we should invite her to dinner. You're teaching her about pasta anyway. Sophie, I'm sure Natalie has plans, Cole said, but his cheeks had flushed slightly. Natalie absolutely had plans. She had 17 emails waiting, a conference call with Tokyo in 3 hours, and reports to review. But looking at Cole's embarrassed expression and Sophie's hopeful face, she found herself saying, Actually, I don't. Have plans, I mean. Sophie's face lit up. Really, you can come to our house. Dad makes really good spaghetti. It's not as good as pizza, but it's close. Sophie, you can't just invite people over, Cole said gently, but he was looking at Natalie with something like hope in his eyes. Natalie might not want to have dinner with strangers. But we're not strangers anymore, Sophie pointed out. We know each other's names, that makes us friends. Natalie made a decision that her board of directors would probably find insane. I'd love to have dinner with you both, if the invitation is genuine and not just your daughter being incredibly polite. Cole hesitated, and she could see him thinking it through. A strange woman, probably wealthy judging by her name and the designer label peeking out from her yoga pants, inviting herself over for dinner. It should have been weird. It was weird. But something about the way he looked at her suggested he wanted her to say yes as much as Sophie did. It's genuine, he said finally. But I have to warn you, our place is small, and there might be science experiments on the kitchen table. I promised I'd clean them up, Sophie interjected. The invitation stands, Cole said. If you really want to learn about regular people food, I can teach you. Then yes, Natalie said. I'd really like that. They finished shopping together, and Natalie found herself learning more about groceries in 30 minutes than she had in her entire adult life. Cole explained the difference between brands, how to pick produce, why buying in bulk sometimes made sense and sometimes didn't. Sophie added her own commentary, mostly about which cereals were the best, and why her father was wrong about limiting her sugar intake. At the checkout, Cole pulled out a battered wallet, carefully counting bills and change. Natalie's groceries cost more than his entire cart, and she saw him notice but not comment. She wondered what he did for work, how he supported himself and Sophie. The worn clothes and careful budgeting suggested money was tight, but his cart was full of fresh vegetables and good quality staples. He was clearly someone who made every dollar count. They walked to the parking lot together, and Natalie pointed to her car, a sleek black Mercedes that looked absurdly out of place in the modest grocery store lot. "Nice car," Cole said neutrally. "Company car," Natalie lied, not sure why. Actually, she'd bought it herself last year, but admitting that felt like showing off. "Ours is the truck," Sophie announced, pointing to a blue pickup that had definitely seen better days. "It's old, but Dad keeps it running really good. He can fix almost anything." They loaded groceries, and Cole gave Natalie his address. She plugged it into her GPS while he wasn't looking, and her phone immediately informed her it was in one of the more working-class neighborhoods in town. Her penthouse was 20 minutes away, but it might as well have been a different world. The drive to Cole's house gave Natalie time to question her sanity. She was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, and she was going to have dinner with a man she'd met in a grocery store and his 7-year-old daughter. She should call her assistant, make an excuse, go back to her regularly scheduled life. Instead, she drove to the address, parking in front of a small but well-maintained house with a neat yard and flowers in the window boxes. The neighborhood was quiet, with kids playing in yards and people sitting on porches. It felt like a different world from her gleaming high-rise apartment, building with its doorman and security. Cole's truck pulled up behind her, and Sophie waved enthusiastically from the passenger seat. Natalie grabbed her grocery bags and met them on the sidewalk. "Welcome to Casa Anderson," Cole said, unlocking the front door. "It's not much, but it's home." The interior was small and cozy, with furniture that looked secondhand but well cared for. Pictures covered almost every surface, mostly of Sophie at various ages. The walls were painted a warm yellow, and the kitchen was tiny but spotlessly clean except for, as promised, a science experiment involving baking soda and food coloring on the table. "Sophie," Cole said with patient exasperation, "I'll clean it up right now." Sophie rushed to the table, carefully moving her project to the counter. Natalie set her bags down and looked around. The house radiated warmth and love in a way her expensive penthouse never had. Every item had purpose and meaning. Nothing was just for show. "Can I help with dinner?" she asked. Cole raised an eyebrow. "Have you ever cooked before?" "No, but I'm a fast learner. This should be interesting." He washed his hands at the sink and gestured for her to do the same. "Rule number 1, follow directions. Rule number 2, don't be afraid to ask questions." "Those are the same rules I use in business," Natalie said. "Then you'll be fine." Over the next hour, Cole taught Natalie how to boil pasta, how to tell when it was done, how to heat up sauce without burning it. His instructions were clear and patient, his hands occasionally brushing hers as he showed her how to stir or strain. Each touch sent electricity through her, and she kept stealing glances at his face, the concentration in his eyes, the gentleness in every movement. Sophie sat at the kitchen counter, homework spread in front of her, occasionally offering advice. "Dad, you should teach her about garlic bread. Everyone needs to know about garlic bread." "One step at a time," Cole said, but he pulled out a loaf of French bread and showed Natalie how to make garlic butter. "You're really good at this," Natalie said, watching him work. "Teaching, I mean, and cooking." "Had to be, when Sophie's mom left." He paused, glancing at his daughter, who was absorbed in her math worksheet. "I had to figure everything out fast. Couldn't afford takeout every night, so I learned to cook." "Sophie's mom isn't in the picture?" Natalie asked quietly. "Hasn't been since Sophie was 2, Cole said, his voice carefully neutral. "She decided motherhood wasn't for her, signed away her rights and left. We haven't heard from her since." "I'm sorry," he shrugged. "It's been hard, but we've made it work." "Sophie's the best thing that ever happened to me. I wouldn't trade being her dad for anything. The way he said it, with such absolute conviction, made Natalie's chest tighten. She'd spent her entire adult life building a company, making money, accumulating power. But she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt the kind of purpose and joy that radiated from Cole when he looked at his daughter. "She's lucky to have you," Natalie said. "I'm the lucky one," Cole smiled at her. "Okay, the pasta should be done, ready to strain it." He guided her through the process, his hand covering hers on the pot handle, his other hand steadying her arm as she poured the pasta into the strainer. Steam rose between them, and when she turned her head, his face was inches from hers. His breath caught, and so did hers. "Dad, is dinner ready?" Sophie called, breaking the moment. "Almost," Cole said, stepping back. His cheeks were flushed, and not just from the steam. They set the table together, and Natalie marveled at how normal it all felt. She'd had 1,000 business dinners, elaborate affairs with multiple courses and wine pairings. But sitting at Cole's small kitchen table with mismatched chairs and plates, eating spaghetti she'd helped make, felt more real than any of those expensive meals. Sophie chattered throughout dinner, telling stories about school, her friends, the book she was reading. Cole listened attentively, asking questions, making encouraging noises. He was completely present in a way Natalie rarely saw. Most of the men she knew were constantly checking phones, thinking about work, half listening at best. "Do you have kids, Natalie?" Sophie asked between bites of pasta. "No," Natalie said. "I've been too focused on work." "What do you do for work?" Sophie asked. Cole shot her a warning look. "Sophie, that's not polite to ask." "It's okay," Natalie said. "I run a company, it makes software for businesses." "That sounds boring," Sophie said, then quickly added, "Sorry, I mean, I'm sure it's interesting to you." Natalie laughed. "You know what? It is kind of boring when I describe it like that." "Do you like it?" Sophie asked. "Your job." It was such a simple question, but Natalie found herself struggling to answer. Did she like it? She was good at it, she made a lot of money, the company was successful. But did she actually enjoy going to work every day? "I used to," she said honestly. "Lately, I'm not so sure." "Then you should find something you like better," Sophie said with the simple wisdom of a 7-year-old. "Dad says life's too short to be unhappy." Cole looked slightly embarrassed. "I say a lot of things. Sophie remembers all of them." "It's good advice," Natalie said, meeting his eyes across the table. After dinner, Sophie insisted on showing Natalie her room, which was small but cheerful, with stars on the ceiling and posters of animals covering the walls. She explained each poster in detail, sharing facts about elephants and dolphins and polar bears. "You're really into animals," Natalie observed. "I want to help them," Sophie said seriously. "Dad says lots of animals need protecting, so I'm going to be a scientist and figure out how to help them." "I think you'll be amazing at that," Sophie smiled, then pulled a book off her shelf. "This is my favorite. Dad reads it to me even though I can read it myself now. It's about a girl who saves a whole forest." Natalie took the book, studying the worn cover. "Your dad must be a good reader." "The best. He does all the voices." Sophie climbed onto her bed. "Maybe he could read it to both of us tonight?" "Sophie, Natalie probably needs to get home," Cole said from the doorway, but Natalie found she didn't want to leave. Didn't want to go back to her empty penthouse and the pile of work waiting for her. "Actually, I'd love to hear the story, if that's okay." So they all squeezed onto Sophie's bed, Sophie in the middle and Cole read the story. He did indeed do all the voices, making Sophie giggle and Natalie smile. His reading voice was warm and expressive, and watching him with his daughter, seeing the pure love between them, made something ache in Natalie's chest. When the story ended, Sophie's eyes were drooping. Cole kissed her forehead and whispered goodnight, and Natalie found herself doing the same, surprising herself with how natural it felt. They left Sophie's room quietly, and Cole led Natalie back to the living room. "Sorry if she was too much," he said. "She gets excited about new people." "She's wonderful," Natalie said sincerely. "You're doing an amazing job with her." "Thanks." Cole ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly nervous. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you really come here tonight?" "I mean, you're clearly not someone who usually hangs out in small houses in working-class neighborhoods." Natalie considered lying, deflecting, but something about Cole made her want to be honest. "I met you in that grocery store, and you were the first person in years who talked to me like I was just a regular person. Not my job title, not my net worth, just me. And then you invited me here, and I wanted to see what that felt like, being normal, being myself." "And?" Cole asked softly. "What does it feel like? Like I've been missing something important." She stepped closer to him. "Like maybe I've been so focused on building my career that I forgot to build a life." Cole reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was intimate and gentle, and Natalie's heart raced. "I felt it too," he admitted. "In the store, something clicked when I saw you standing there looking lost. I don't usually invite strangers home." "I don't usually accept invitations from strangers," Natalie whispered. They were standing very close now, and she could feel the heat radiating from his body. He smelled like garlic and pasta sauce and something uniquely him. His hand moved to cup her cheek, and she leaned into the touch. "I should probably go," she said, not moving. "Probably," Cole agreed, also not moving. "I had a really nice time tonight. Me too." His thumb stroked her cheekbone. "Can I see you again? Is that crazy? We just met." "Completely crazy," Natalie said. "Yes," he smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "Tomorrow. I have meetings until 7. I have Sophie until 8 when she goes to bed. After. That's late. I know, but I don't want to wait longer than I have to." His honesty was disarming. 8:30, Natalie said. "I'll come here, or I could meet you somewhere." "I don't want you to always have to come to my neighborhood." "Cole, I don't care about neighborhoods. I care about seeing you again." He kissed her then, soft and sweet, his lips gentle against hers. It was over too quickly, leaving her breathless and wanting more. 8:30 tomorrow, he confirmed. "I'll be here," she promised. Driving home, Natalie's mind raced. She'd just kissed a man she barely knew, a man who lived in a different world from hers. A man with a 7-year-old daughter and a struggling income and a beat-up truck. On paper, it made no sense. But her heart was pounding, and she couldn't stop smiling, and for the first time in years, she was excited about something that had nothing to do with business. Her phone had 37 missed calls and 63 emails. She ignored all of them. The next day at work was torture. Natalie sat through meeting after meeting, her mind drifting to Cole's gentle smile and Sophie's infectious enthusiasm. Her CFO noticed her distraction during the budget review and asked if she was feeling well. She claimed a headache, which wasn't entirely a lie. Her head was spinning with thoughts of Cole. At 6, her assistant brought in another stack of papers that needed signatures. Natalie looked at them, then at the clock, then made a decision. "Rachel, clear my schedule for tomorrow morning," she said. Rachel's eyes widened. "But you have the investor meeting at 9. Reschedule it." "Miss Vanderbilt, this is a critical meeting. The investors flew in from California specifically to see you. Then they can wait one more day. Reschedule it." Natalie signed the papers quickly, her mind already on getting to Cole's house. "And Rachel, take the rest of the evening off. You work too hard." Rachel looked like she'd been told the world was ending but nodded and left. Natalie packed her briefcase, then left it by her desk. She wouldn't need it tonight. She stopped by her penthouse to change, swapping her business suit for jeans and a soft sweater. It felt strange to dress casually 2 days in a row, but also liberating. She grabbed a bottle of good wine from her collection, then reconsidered. Would Cole think she was showing off? She picked a mid-range bottle instead, something nice but not ostentatious. She arrived at Cole's house at 8:25. The lights were on, and through the window she could see Cole moving around the living room. Her stomach fluttered with nerves. This was ridiculous. She'd negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, but the thought of seeing Cole again made her hands shake. She knocked, and Cole answered immediately, like he'd been waiting by the door. "Hi," he said, his smile bright and genuine. "Hi," she replied, suddenly shy. "I brought wine. You didn't have to, but thank you." He stepped aside to let her in. "Sophie just went to bed, but she made me promise to tell you hi. Tell her hi back tomorrow. You want to come back tomorrow." Natalie set the wine down and turned to face him. "I want to come back every day, which is insane because we just met." Cole closed the distance between them. "I've been thinking about you all day. I messed up 3 repair jobs because I couldn't concentrate." "Repair jobs? I'm a mechanic." "Well, I work at an auto shop. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. Mostly." He looked embarrassed. "I'm sure it's nothing like what you're used to." "Cole, I don't care what you do for work. I care that you're kind and patient and you're raising an incredible daughter." He kissed her then, deeper than last night, his hands tangling in her hair. She pressed against him, feeling his solid warmth, losing herself in the sensation. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "I want to do this right," he said. "Get to know you properly. Take you on actual dates, but I also want to keep kissing you." "We can do both," Natalie suggested. They settled on the couch with glasses of wine, and Cole told her about his day. He described the cars he'd worked on, the regular customers who came in, his boss who was gruff but fair. He talked about picking Sophie up from school, helping with her homework, the ongoing debate about whether she needed a pet hamster. In turn, Natalie found herself opening up about her life. She told him about taking over her father's company at 25, about the board members who doubted her, about the loneliness of being at the top. She talked about the pressure, the endless work, the realization that she'd sacrificed everything personal for professional success. "Do you regret it?" Cole asked. "I don't know," Natalie admitted. "I built something real, something that matters. The company employs thousands of people. We've created innovative products, but I look at you with Sophie and I wonder what I've missed." "It's not too late," Cole said gently. "You're what, 33? 34? I'm 32. We're not exactly ancient." He took her hand. "I spent my 20s figuring out how to be a single dad. I didn't date, didn't have a social life, just worked and took care of Sophie. I told myself that was enough. But meeting you made me realize I want more too." "What do you want?" Natalie asked. "Honestly, someone to share my life with, someone who loves Sophie as much as I do, someone who gets that I'm not rich, that I work hard, that some months are tighter than others." He looked at her intensely. "But also someone who challenges me, who has their own life and dreams. I don't want to be someone's whole world. I want to be part of it." "That's remarkably self-aware for someone who claims they haven't dated in years." Cole laughed. "I've had a lot of time to think. And honestly, I knew that when I found the right person, I'd need to be ready. I couldn't waste their time or mine. And you think I might be the right person? We've known each other a day." "I think you might be," he said seriously. "Call it instinct, call it crazy. But when I saw you in that store, something just felt right." Natalie knew she should be cautious, should take things slow, but she'd spent her whole life being careful and calculated. For once, she wanted to follow her instincts. "I feel it too," she admitted. They talked until midnight, sharing stories and dreams. Cole told her about growing up with parents who worked constantly, about learning to be independent young, about the moment he'd held Sophie for the first time and known his whole life had changed. Natalie shared memories of her driven father who'd built an empire but rarely came home, of her mother who died when she was 16, of the desperate need to prove herself that had driven her for years. When she finally left, it was with plans to see him the next evening and the evening after that. Cole walked her to her car, kissing her goodnight under the streetlight like they were teenagers instead of 2 adults with complicated lives. "I'm falling for you," he whispered against her lips. "Fair warning." "Good," Natalie whispered back, "because I'm falling for you too." Over the next 3 weeks, Natalie reorganized her entire life. She delegated more at work, left the office by 6 every evening, and stopped taking calls after 7. Her board was concerned. Her CFO asked if something was wrong. Her assistant started a rumor that she was sick, but Natalie had never felt healthier. She spent every evening at Cole's house, helping make dinner, playing board games with Sophie, learning what it meant to be part of a family. On weekends, they went to the park, to the zoo, to museums. Cole insisted on paying his share, carefully budgeting for their dates, and Natalie respected that even though she could have easily paid for everything without noticing. She learned that Cole had been saving for years to buy a house in a better school district, that he worked overtime whenever he could to build Sophie's college fund, that he'd taught himself car repair through library books and YouTube videos, when he realized he needed a skill that paid more than minimum wage. She learned that Sophie was fiercely smart and occasionally stubborn, that she missed having a mother but had built a life full of love with just her dad, that she wanted siblings and a dog, and to visit Antarctica someday. And she learned about herself, that she was capable of putting someone else's needs first, that she liked helping with homework more than reviewing quarterly reports, that the sound of Sophie's laugh was better than any corporate victory. Cole met her world slowly. She invited him to a company dinner, and he showed up in a suit that was slightly too big, probably borrowed or thrifted. He held his own in conversations with executives and investors, his natural intelligence and genuine manner winning people over. One board member told her privately that Cole seemed like a good man, which coming from the typically judgmental Gerald was high praise. But there were also awkward moments. Like when they went to a restaurant Natalie loved, and Cole quietly calculated the menu prices, choosing one of the cheapest options. Or when her car needed an oil change, and he insisted on doing it himself rather than letting her take it to her usual luxury service center. Or when she mentioned a charity gala with tickets that cost $5,000 a plate, and he'd gone quiet, clearly overwhelmed. "We need to talk," Natalie said one evening after Sophie had gone to bed. They were in his living room, and she could feel tension radiating from him. "Yeah," Cole agreed. "We do. You've been distant the last few days," he sighed, running his hands through his hair. "I'm trying to figure out how this works, Natalie. You live in a penthouse. I rent a house in a neighborhood I can barely afford. You drive a car worth more than I make in a year. When people see us together, they're going to wonder what you're doing with someone like me. I don't care what people think, but I do. Not for me, but for Sophie. I don't want her growing up thinking money doesn't matter, that hard work isn't important. I've taught her to value what we have, to appreciate that we work for everything." He looked at her with anguished eyes. "How do I explain that her dad is dating someone who could buy our whole neighborhood without blinking?" "First, that's an exaggeration," Natalie said. "Second, you're right that we have different financial situations. But Cole, I fell in love with you, not your bank account, not what you can provide materially. You love me." His voice was quiet. "Yes," Natalie said firmly. "I love that you're an incredible father. I love that you're patient and kind and gentle. I love that you work hard and save money and have priorities that matter. I love the life you've built with Sophie. I love who I am when I'm with you." Cole pulled her into his arms. "I love you too. God, I've loved you since you agreed to learn about pasta. But I need you to understand something. I can't be someone's charity case. I can't let you support me or pay for everything or make me feel like I'm just along for the ride in your life." "Then don't," Natalie said. "Cole, I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm just asking you to let me be part of your life, however that looks. What if it looks like me still living in this house, still working at the auto shop, still budgeting every dollar? Then that's what it looks like. Cole, I have money, yes. But that's not who I am. Or at least, it's not who I want to be anymore. You've shown me what matters. Family, time together, being present. I'd give up the penthouse tomorrow if it meant keeping this." He kissed her deeply, and she felt the tension drain from his body. "I'm sorry. I'm just scared of messing this up. You and Sophie, you're both so important to me now. We'll figure it out together," Natalie promised, but figuring it out proved more complicated than expected. Sophie's school called one day while Natalie was at Cole's house. The teacher wanted to discuss Sophie's college aspirations, which were impressive, and whether the family had started looking at scholarship opportunities and academic prep programs. Cole hung up looking stressed. Those prep programs cost thousands. I've been trying to save, but it's just not happening fast enough. She's so smart, Natalie. She could get into amazing schools if she had the right opportunities. Natalie bit her tongue. She could write a check right now that would pay for every opportunity Sophie could ever want. But she knew Cole's pride, knew he needed to provide for his daughter himself. What if I could help without it being charity? She asked carefully. How? My company has an education program. We offer scholarships and mentoring to employees' families. If you worked for us, Sophie would qualify. Cole looked skeptical. I'm a mechanic. What would I do at a software company? Actually, we have a fleet of company cars that need maintenance, and our facilities need constant repair work. I could create a position managing that. It would pay more than the auto shop, and it would come with benefits, including education support. You'd create a job just for me? I'd create a job that we legitimately need filled, and you're qualified for it. Natalie took his hands. Cole, I'm not trying to buy my way into your life. But I have resources, and I want to use them to help people I love. Let me help. He struggled with it, she could see, the pride of a man who'd always made his own way warring with the desire to give his daughter every opportunity. I'd be your employee, he said slowly. That's weird. You'd work in facilities management, reporting to Carl Henderson, our operations director, not to me directly. And Sophie gets the education benefits. All employees' children do. Can I think about it? Of course. He thought about it for 3 days, during which Natalie tried not to push. Finally, he came to her penthouse for the first time. She'd invited him and Sophie for dinner, wanting them to see where she lived, to make all parts of their lives fit together. Sophie's eyes went huge when she walked in. Daddy, this is like a palace. It's too big, Natalie admitted. I never realized how empty it felt until I started spending time at your house. Cole walked through slowly, taking in the expensive furniture, the view of the city, the art on the walls. She couldn't read his expression. This is your world, he said finally. It was, Natalie corrected, but I like your world better. Sophie was exploring, exclaiming over the view. Cole pulled Natalie aside. I'll take the job, but on one condition. What? I pull my weight. I do the work right. If I'm not good at it, if I don't earn my place, you let me go. Cole, you're one of the most competent people I know. You'll be great at it. Promise me, he insisted. No special treatment because we're together. I promise. He kissed her soft and sweet. Thank you. For understanding why this matters to me. Thank you for letting me help, for letting me be part of your life. Daddy, Natalie, you have to see this view, Sophie called. They joined her at the window, the three of them standing together looking out at the glittering city. Sophie wedged herself between them, grabbing both their hands. This is cool, Sophie said, but I still like our house better. It's cozier. I agree, Natalie said, squeezing her hand. Cole started at Vanderbilt Industries 2 weeks later. True to her word, Natalie stayed out of his work life. She heard through Carl that Cole was excellent, that he'd already reorganized the maintenance schedule and saved the company money by handling repairs in-house instead of contracting out. At home, they fell into a rhythm. Natalie kept her penthouse, but spent most nights at Cole's house. On weekends, they looked at houses in better school districts, Cole now able to qualify for a mortgage with his new salary. Sophie started in an enrichment program and thrived, her science projects becoming more elaborate and impressive, but not everything was smooth. Natalie's father, Richard Vanderbilt, the company's founder who'd retired but still held significant shares, demanded a meeting 6 months into their relationship. What's this I hear about you dating an auto mechanic? He asked without preamble when Natalie entered his study. His name is Cole Anderson, and yes, we're together, Natalie said calmly. She'd expected this conversation. Natalie, you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. You can't be seen with someone so far beneath your station. Cole is kind, hardworking, and an incredible father. He's not beneath anyone's station. He's after your money. He insisted on keeping his own apartment for the first 3 months we dated because he didn't want me to think he was using me, Natalie countered. He pays for dates, even when I know it stretches his budget. He refused a job at my company until I convinced him it was legitimate and not charity. He's the opposite of a gold digger. Richard looked unconvinced. What about children? Are you going to raise his daughter? Sophie, and yes, I hope to be a meaningful part of her life. She's wonderful. And your own children? Or are you giving up on that dream for his ready-made family? The question stung because Natalie had been wondering the same thing. She and Cole had been so focused on making their relationship work, on blending their lives, that they hadn't talked about the future beyond the next few months. I don't know yet, she admitted. But Dad, I love him, and Sophie, they've made me happier than I've been in years. Happiness doesn't build empires. No, but it builds lives, and I'm tired of having an empire but no life. Richard studied her. You sound like your mother, Natalie's breath caught. What? Before she died, she told me I was so focused on building the company that I was missing out on you growing up. That I'd wake up one day and realize I'd won at business but lost at everything else. His expression softened slightly. I didn't listen to her. I kept working, and she was right. I missed your childhood. Don't make my mistakes, Natalie. If this man makes you happy, if he's good to you, then maybe that matters more than what society thinks. It was the closest to approval she'd get, and Natalie took it. That evening, she went to Cole's house, where he was helping Sophie with a diorama of the Arctic ecosystem. They looked up when she entered, both smiling, and her heart swelled. Can we talk? She asked Cole. After Sophie goes to bed. Sure, everything okay? Yes. Just things we need to discuss. After Sophie was tucked in, Natalie and Cole sat on the couch. She'd been thinking all day about her father's words, about the future, about what she wanted. I want more, she said without preamble. Cole looked concerned. More what? More of this, of us. I want to stop splitting time between my penthouse and here. I want to wake up together every morning. I want to be there when Sophie wakes up, when she goes to school, when she comes home. I want us to find a house together, all three of us. I want to be a real family. Cole's eyes widened. Natalie, are you saying? I'm saying I want to be with you fully. I want to be Sophie's stepmom if she'd be okay with that. I want to build a life with both of you. She took a breath. And eventually, if you want, I'd like to have more children. I want Sophie to have siblings. I want to experience what you've experienced, raising a child from the beginning. I want all of that too, Cole said, his voice thick with emotion. God, I want that so much. But Natalie, are you sure? You'd be giving up your independence, your freedom. I have full custody of Sophie, but being a stepmom is hard work. And more kids means noise and chaos and less time for your career. I'm sure, Natalie said firmly. Cole, you and Sophie have already changed my life. I want to make it permanent. He kissed her, tender and deep, and she felt the rightness of this decision in her bones. I don't have a ring, he murmured against her lips. I wasn't planning to propose for at least another year, wanted to have more saved up. I don't need a ring, Natalie interrupted. I just need you to say yes. Yes, Cole said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to all of it. They told Sophie the next morning. She looked between them, processing, then asked the question they should have anticipated. Does this mean you'll be my real mom? I'll be your stepmom, Natalie said gently. But if you want to call me Mom, I'd be honored. Sophie thought about it. Can I call you Nat most of the time and Mom when it feels right? That sounds perfect. Okay, and we'll all live together. Yes, Cole confirmed. In a big house where I can have a dog, Natalie laughed. We can discuss the dog. That means yes. Sophie launched herself at them and they all hugged, a tangle of arms and laughter. Finding a house took time. Cole wanted something he could contribute to meaningfully, not just a mansion Natalie bought outright. They found a compromise, a 4-bedroom house in an excellent school district that needed renovation work. Cole could do most of the repairs himself, sweat equity that made the house truly theirs. They got married 3 months later in a small ceremony in the backyard of their new house. Sophie was the maid of honor, wearing a purple dress she'd picked out herself. Natalie's father attended, gruff but approving, telling Cole privately that if he ever hurt Natalie, there would be consequences. Cole had laughed and promised to treat her right. The wedding was simple but perfect. No society pages, no business associates, just close friends and the people who mattered. Natalie wore a simple white dress. Cole wore a suit he'd bought new for the occasion, and Sophie carried flowers from their garden. When Cole slipped the ring on Natalie's finger, a simple gold band he'd saved for months to buy, she cried. When she slipped a matching one on his, he did too. "I love you," he whispered. "Thank you for choosing us." "Thank you for teaching me what really matters," she whispered back. Their honeymoon was a weekend camping trip because Sophie had never been camping and she'd been begging to go. They slept in a tent, roasted marshmallows, and looked at stars. It was the opposite of the luxurious trips Natalie used to take, and she loved every minute back home. They settled into married life. Natalie cut back her hours at work even more, promoting her COO to handle day-to-day operations while she focused on strategy and big-picture decisions. She made it home for family dinners every night, helped with homework, attended school events. Sophie thrived with two parents, her confidence growing. She joined the science club at school, made new friends in their neighborhood, and seemed happier than Natalie had ever seen her. A year into their marriage, Natalie found out she was pregnant. She took 3 tests to be sure, then called Cole at work. "Can you come home early?" she asked. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, everything's right, just come home." He made it in 20 minutes, probably breaking every speed limit. She was waiting in the living room with Sophie, both of them grinning. "What's going on?" Cole asked, looking between them. Sophie held up a sign she'd made. "Big sister coming soon." Cole's face went through several emotions in rapid succession: confusion, understanding, joy. "You're pregnant." "We're having a baby," Natalie confirmed. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing. Sophie danced around them, asking a million questions about when the baby would come, and if she could help pick names and whether they'd like science experiments. The pregnancy was smooth, and Natalie worked from home for the last 2 months, preparing the nursery with Sophie's enthusiastic help. They painted it a soft green, not wanting to know the gender until birth. Cole was attentive and worried, constantly asking if she was okay, if she needed anything. Natalie found it endearing, the way he fussed over her, brought her favorite foods, rubbed her feet when they swelled. "You're going to be an amazing father to this baby," she told him one night. "You already are to Sophie." "I'm scared," he admitted. "I was so young with Sophie, and her mom left so fast. I figured everything out by necessity. But this time, I want to do it right from the start. With you." "We'll figure it out together," Natalie assured him. Their son was born on a rainy Tuesday morning in April. They named him Henry, after Natalie's grandfather. He had Cole's brown eyes and Natalie's nose, and Sophie declared him the cutest baby ever. "Can I hold him?" she asked, bouncing on her toes in the hospital room. Cole carefully placed Henry in Sophie's arms, supervising closely. "Support his head." "That's perfect, Soph." "Hi, Henry," Sophie whispered. "I'm your big sister. I'm going to teach you everything about science, and we'll do experiments together, and I'll make sure nobody's ever mean to you at school." Natalie's eyes filled with tears watching them. This was her family. Her real, complete family. The next few months were exhausting and wonderful. Natalie took maternity leave, the first extended time off she'd taken in her entire career. Cole used his paternity leave, and together they muddled through sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and the steep learning curve of having a newborn. Sophie helped when she could, fetching diapers, singing to Henry when he cried, proudly showing him off to her friends. She adapted to being a big sister with grace, occasionally jealous but mostly just excited. When Natalie went back to work part-time, she'd restructured her role even more. She went in 3 days a week, working from home the other 2. Her board had concerns initially, but the company was thriving under the new leadership structure, and Natalie was making better strategic decisions with a clearer head. Cole had been promoted to head of facilities, managing a team now. He was good at leadership, patient and fair, and his practical knowledge was invaluable. He still came home every evening, still made dinner most nights, still read to Sophie before bed. "How did I get so lucky?" Natalie asked one night. They were in bed, Henry asleep in his bassinet beside them, Sophie presumably asleep down the hall. "Lucky," Cole turned to her. "I'm the lucky one. You changed our lives, Natalie. Sophie has opportunities I could never have given her alone. We have this house, stability, a future." "You gave me a family," Natalie countered. "You taught me that success isn't just about money or titles. You showed me what love actually looks like." "I think we saved each other," Cole said softly, pulling her close. Henry started fussing and they both groaned. But Cole got up without complaint, lifting their son and pacing the room, murmuring gentle words. Natalie watched them, this man who'd been a stranger 2 years ago, now the center of her world. By Henry's first birthday, they'd fallen into a good rhythm. Sophie was 10 now, confident and bright, already talking about high schools and college. Henry was walking and babbling, getting into everything, adored by his big sister. Natalie's father had become an active grandfather, surprising everyone. He came to birthday parties and school plays, taught Sophie about business, and read stories to Henry. He'd pulled Natalie aside at Henry's birthday party and told her he was proud of her, not for the company, but for the life she'd built. "Your mother would be proud too," he'd said. "You found balance. You found love. That's worth more than any corporate success." Cole and Natalie talked about having one more child, maybe in another year or two. Sophie lobbied for a sister, claiming she needed female backup in the family. Cole laughed and said he'd be happy with whatever they decided. Their house was always slightly chaotic now. Toys everywhere, Sophie's school projects on the dining table, Henry's baby equipment scattered around. It was nothing like Natalie's pristine penthouse had been, and she loved it. Work continued to go well. Natalie had found a way to be both CEO and present mother, delegating effectively and setting boundaries. She'd started mentoring other women in the company, encouraging them to find balance, proving it was possible to have both career and family. Cole's auto repair skills had led to him starting a small side business, teaching basic car maintenance to teens and young adults in their community. He did it Saturdays mornings, and Sophie often helped, learning alongside the students. It gave him a creative outlet and helped their neighbors, which fulfilled him in ways his regular job didn't always. 2 years after Henry's birth, Natalie found out she was pregnant again. They told Sophie and Henry together this time. Sophie cheered for her potential sister, though they reminded her it might be another brother. Henry, not quite 3, didn't fully understand but clapped because everyone else was excited. 3 kids, Cole said that night, sounding slightly odd. "We're going to have 3 kids. Too many." Natalie asked. "No, perfect, chaotic and loud and perfect." Their daughter was born in winter during the first snowfall. They named her Grace, and she had Natalie's blonde hair and Cole's gentle disposition. Sophie was immediately protective. Henry was curious and confused, and Cole walked around looking perpetually amazed that this was his life. Natalie took 6 months off this time, and when she went back, it was only 2 days a week in the office. She'd promoted her COO to president, handling most operational decisions. Natalie focused on vision and strategy, which she could largely do from home. Some people whispered that she'd lost her edge, that she'd stopped caring about the company. But the numbers didn't lie. Vanderbilt Industries was more successful than ever, and employee satisfaction had skyrocketed under the new, more balanced leadership culture. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Cole planned a surprise. He'd arranged for Sophie to watch Henry and Grace overnight, and he took Natalie to the grocery store where they'd met. "Remember this aisle?" he asked, leading her to the soup section. "How could I forget? I was having a crisis over tomato soup. "You were beautiful," Cole said. Standing there looking completely lost, "I thought you were the most interesting person I'd ever seen." "I thought you were kind," Natalie replied. "The way you talked about Sophie, so gentle and full of love, it made me want to know you." They recreated that first night, buying groceries together, going back to their house to make dinner. But this time, the house was full of evidence of their life together: kids' toys, family photos, the beautiful chaos of their blended family. "I love our life," Natalie said as they cooked. "Sometimes I can't believe this is real." "It's real," Cole assured her, kissing her temple. 5 years of real, and hopefully 50 more." "At least 50 more," she agreed. They ate dinner by candlelight, talking about their kids, their dreams, their future. Cole had been saving to open his own auto repair shop, something he could eventually pass on to Henry or any of their kids if they were interested. Natalie was writing a book about work-life balance for executive women, hoping to help others find what she'd found. "We should go back to that grocery store every anniversary," Cole suggested. "Remember where it all started." "I'd like that. Remind ourselves how lucky we are." "How loved we are," Cole corrected. "Luck brought us together, love kept us together." Later, lying in bed, Natalie thought about the journey from that day in the grocery store to now. She'd been so lost then, so disconnected from herself and what mattered. Cole had shown her a different path, not by trying to change her, but by simply being himself. Genuine, kind, present. She'd given him stability and opportunity, but he'd given her so much more: purpose, family, love. They'd built something beautiful together, something that grew stronger every day. Sophie was starting to think about colleges now, brilliant and ambitious, planning to change the world. Henry was curious and sweet, always asking questions, fascinated by how things worked. Grace was still a baby but already showing signs of being spirited and strong-willed. Their house was never quiet, never perfectly clean, never boring. It was full of life and laughter and love. Cole's arm tightened around her. "What are you thinking about?" "How a random Tuesday afternoon changed my entire life," Natalie said. "Same," Cole murmured. "Best soup aisle crisis ever." She laughed, turning to kiss him. "I love you. I love you too, forever." And lying there in their home, their children sleeping down the hall, their future bright and certain, Natalie knew she'd found what she'd been searching for all along. Not success or wealth or power, though she still had those things. But something infinitely more valuable. A partner who understood her, children who filled her heart, and a life rich with meaning. The CEO who'd once measured her worth in quarterly reports and stock prices now measured it in family dinners, bedtime stories, and quiet moments with the man who'd taught her what really mattered. And she'd never been wealthier. Years later, when Sophie graduated summa cum laude from college with a degree in environmental science, when Henry started high school with Cole's mechanical aptitude and Natalie's business sense, when Grace entered elementary school as bright and curious as her siblings, Natalie would look back on that day in the grocery store as the best thing that ever happened to her. She'd walked into that store looking for soup and walked out having found her soulmate. She'd been lost and alone, successful but empty. And a struggling single dad with gentle words and a kind smile had shown her what love actually looked like. Their life wasn't perfect. They still argued about money sometimes, about parenting decisions, about whose turn it was to handle the 2 a.m. feeding. But they worked through it together, with respect and patience and unwavering commitment. Cole still worked hard, still saved money carefully, still taught their kids the value of earning what you have. But he'd learned to accept help when needed, to share burdens, to let Natalie be his partner in every sense. Natalie still ran her company, still made important decisions, still had ambition. But she'd learned that success means nothing if you have no one to share it with, that the most important meetings happen around the dinner table, that being present is the greatest gift you can give. Together, they'd built something neither could have created alone. A family knitted together by love and choice, biological and blended into something beautiful. On their 10th anniversary, they went back to that grocery store again, a tradition now. Sophie came with them this time, bringing a boyfriend Cole was carefully evaluating. Henry and Grace stayed home with Grandpa Richard, who'd become the doting grandfather no one expected. "This is where it all started," Cole told Sophie's boyfriend, gesturing to aisle 7. "Your girlfriend's dad was a smooth operator, helping confused women in the soup aisle." "Dad, please," Sophie groaned, but she was smiling. "It's true," Natalie confirmed. "He had me at hello. Well, actually, he had me at you look like you're having a soup-related crisis." They laughed together, and Natalie caught Cole's eye over Sophie's head. He winked at her, and her heart raced the way it had that very first day. Some things never changed. The way he looked at her, the gentleness in his voice, the way he could make her heart skip with just a smile. They'd grown together, changed together, built a life together. But the core of what drew them together remained: genuine connection, unexpected love, and the courage to choose each other every single day. Walking out of that grocery store 10 years after their first meeting, hands linked, their daughter chatting beside them, Natalie felt a profound sense of gratitude. For the therapist who'd told her to buy groceries. For the soup aisle crisis that had made her pause. For Cole's kindness in approaching a stranger. For Sophie's immediate acceptance. For every small choice that had led them here. Life had given her so much: success, wealth, power. But it had also taught her what truly mattered. And standing in the parking lot of an ordinary grocery store with her extraordinary family, Natalie knew she had everything. Cole squeezed her hand. "Ready to go home? With you? Always," Natalie replied. And they drove home together, to the house full of love they'd built, to the life that had started with a chance meeting and gentle words that had made her heart race. To the happily ever after she'd found in the last place she'd expected. Aisle 7 of a regular grocery store, in the smile of a struggling single dad who'd shown her what real wealth looked like.